Hello, world.
Hello.
We are here for Making the Shift. Very fun, exciting episode that we have for you today. And that's because we have Kyle here,
Hello.
a friend of ours. And I will tell you, I first met Kyle because his sister works at our clinic. So
Yeah.
his sister is an SLP and Kyle is autistic. And we really connected on that. And we're excited to have him here as part of our show because it's something we've been talking about for a long time.
Yes.
And I just want to kind of preface this by saying that I think you'll find a lot of inspiration from this show. I know that I've met your entire family now because
Yes.
they've all been out here. And something that is so wild to think about is I know doctors told your mom when you were young, like, nothing will ever come of him, basically, that kind of mentality. Like,
Yep.
he'll never do anything. Here's his diagnosis. And your mom was just persistent. She was like,
Yes.
that's not going to be the case for my kid. And
Yeah.
she just went hard into supporting you your entire life. So, you ended up moving to New York independently, been an accountant for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm really excited. But maybe you can kind of just kick us off by sharing maybe a little bit of what happened, back then, like what were some of the big challenges or struggles that you faced as a child? And I know some of them might be the same today, but
Of course. Of course. Yeah. So first of all, Jesse and Chris, thank you for the opportunity. Really excited to talk to both of you. I know we've been trying to plan this for so long and really happy today is the day. So that is the first thing.
We're excited to have you, man. This is awesome that we're here together in person.
Yes. There's so many times I've seen Chris on social media. And I'm like, when am I going to meet speech dude? I would text like one day.
And here we are.
She texted me, Chris is coming today. I was so happy.
I love it.
I was so happy that you were going to be here today.
Yeah, this is the best. Doing something like this in person is nothing better than that. Yeah.
Completely agree.
I love
it. So if you do want to go back, you are correct. So when I was 3 years old, so this is way back when, 1994, I was 3 and I was diagnosed with hearing loss, learning disability, and autism. And the school district told my parents I had a 5% chance of finishing high school. And what they said was, Mrs. Manske, a child that starts in special ed, stays in special ed, we're sorry, but we don't expect much from Kyle. And at the first time, like when I heard that, my mom was very upset, and I understand that. But I can also, as you get older and wiser, you understand why people would have that perception. And I understand because at that time, in the 90s, 30 years ago, expectations on the spectrum and honestly acceptance was not as common. Like at that time, what film came out was What's Eating Gilbert Grape. And what most people thought of autism and special needs was Leonardo DiCaprio's character and performance.
Right.
And that's like what kind of people thought and expected, and not understanding now, like 2025, like how, like now there's whatever love on the spectrum and how much acceptance that there is. So I understand why the doctor said that back in 1994. I get that. But the best thing is that when my mom heard that, she said, no, this kid's going to have a happy life. He's going to have an amazing life. Even if he's bagging groceries at the grocery store and he's happy and he does what he loves, that's what really matters.
That's awesome.
And I know based on some of your social media posts, Chris, you've said as well that like you have kids that might have an interest in childish like things like Bluey or Sesame Street. And you probably tell the parents like, hey, if that child or young adult is happy based on Sesame Street or whatever that interest, an interest is an interest, and if they're happy and not hurting anyone, then how am I supposed to judge?
Right. Absolutely. You nailed it. And back to and reflecting back on that too, it's interesting because like 30, 40 years ago with mainstream media like What's Eating Gilbert Grape or Rain Man, is it like it created just like this very narrow view of with a lack of understanding and not seeing that autism is more of an internal experience, not an external expression. And I think that's the thing now as we've come to the year 2025, that internal experience being the key thing for you. Um, I know before we hit record here, we were having a conversation about identity and the importance of at least knowing some language and some ways to frame how we um, and accept ourselves,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's the great thing that you mentioned is that your mom has always been supportive, like, hey,
Mhm.
look, my child's got differences, and we're gonna offer as much support as we can. We're gonna honor whatever whatever Kyle's interested in,
Right.
and that's been a huge game changer. Um, has that helped shaped like identity and being autistic helped you out in current day, like in what ways?
Yeah, absolutely. I helping autistic in current days. So first, if I'm going back, what I've learned from my parents is that they're so loving and so supportive and so accepting of who I am. So when my mom quit her job and took a part-time job to become my advocate support teacher, she took me to Children's Hospital 3 times a week for about 12 years, 10 to 12 years. But during that time, what I was really fixated as is with my shirt, is I loved baseball. I would go to my grandma's house. I would watch, she would have, she was lived in Racine, so she's right near the Wisconsin-Illinois border.
Okay.
And if you remember or not, Cubs games, Chicago Cubs games used to be on during the day. And so when I would, after school, I would go by her and she would have Cubs games on Channel 9, the
Oh, that's awesome.
Superstation, and it was with
Yeah.
Harry Carey and Steve Stone, and I was like watching a lot of those games with my grandma.
Oh, awesome.
I call her Mim, and I still do that. It's weird. The most watched videos on YouTube are like these old Cubs broadcasts from the early mid 90s that I watch. I already know what the game happened, but it's like memories of watching that with her, and that's kind of like part of how I learned how to talk and learning how to communicate.
Oh, I love it.
But I didn't understand, getting excited over a Sammy Sosa home run or an RBI single, getting that excitement in the school library. I still didn't understand what was socially appropriate
Oh, gotcha.
and what
Yeah.
and what isn't. So so being fixated on a certain thing, how that's played into my life is very attentive to detail and very fixated on certain things. So that's like going to baseball games. On my job, I was really fixated on doing a good job, focusing
Yeah.
and doing the absolute best that I could. And like going to the gym, doing 100 push-ups every single day.
Keeping
So
active and all that stuff.
so
Yeah.
I was like very consistent and very fixated on doing well and doing certain things well. And that's kind of played that's played in most of my life. And it's been very positive things. Like I've done very well at work. I've had like because of the support of my parents, I've, accomplished a lot and
Right.
done
Yeah.
done a lot of amazing things. But more importantly, um, I have no agenda. If I'm talking to someone, how I am is who I am.
Yeah.
And people can see that right away. So I was at a bachelor party in San Diego, and there was a guy who was looking at me, and he kept staring at me, and he's like, "You're so genuine, authentic." And I'm
Oh,
like,
that's
"How
awesome.
do you know?" He's like, he just kept staring at me, and he's like, "I can see it in your eyes. You're not hiding anything. You don't care." And it was really, really sweet. Like I talked to
Yeah,
him
you're
for
like, you get me. Yeah,
like you
you
get me,
understand.
and we talked. Like he had a Padres hat, I was wearing my Brewers hat, and talked baseball, and he was just like, There's something about you. I don't know what it is, but he just like kept staring and looking at me,
Oh, yeah.
and I think people know right away. The first
Totally. Yeah.
impression is everything. And so when you see your notes, when you're like, okay, this guy is genuine, he cares, he's really, really nice. And
That's
this
awesome.
one of the nicest things that I remember. Um, we might be skipping, go ahead in this timeline, but when I was in high school, um, in order to get accommodations for college, there was like time and a half, maybe a separate room for tests, and you probably have the same accommodations for your kids based on what you have. So I had to take a psychological evaluation,
Hmm.
and I remember going through it, and then I got the report back, and I read it, and I was really, really sad. I was really hurt because it read certain things like Kyle's, not going to have many friends. Kyle's
It's
going
like
to live
all
alone. Like
deficit
it
based,
was,
and
it was
you're
all,
like,
it was very deficit, very negative. He's not going to be able to live on his own. He's not going to be able to hold a job. He's not aware of social situations. He's not appropriate. So it listed all the negative things about me. And I
right.
remember reading that and I started crying because I was so hurt because I
Yeah.
thought, man, maybe I'll never have friends. Maybe I'll never have a relationship. Maybe if I go to college, I might not be able to finish or live on my own or be independent. And it's that like start reading those things and start believing it. Like it's gonna happen. And I was really sad for a couple of weeks. I remember my mom took that report and she went up to the school psychologist and she's like, hey, you wrote all these things about my son. Yes, these things are true. He can be very loud. Yes, he can be inappropriate, or he can use a high pitched voice, or maybe he's not aware. But you know what? He's really nice. He's really compassionate. A lot of people like him. He has a lot of friends. He was one of the prom kings in homecoming because he's really genuine and authentic, and he's not going to hide who he is.
Right.
And she's like, but you know what? All of us have issues. He has issues, but there's also a lot of positives. And then she turned around to the school psychologist and said, if you were under a magnifying glass, wouldn't you look a little quirky or different? And then the psychologist, like, oh yeah, I take anxiety medication, I take ADD medication. And then she goes through the school psychologist who evaluates me to say like what was wrong with me, then tells my mom about all about her problems
Oh
that
my
she's
gosh.
dealing with.
Right. Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, it's gosh, I know that's the such an important thing that we try to send messages to the therapists that we work with too, is the language that we use in our reports, how that could either open up new doors or it can shut doors, right? Because if it comes from a deficit approach, nobody's winning there. I
Yeah.
like how you shared your mom has always instilled uh acceptance, positive
Yeah.
self-identity, which increases self-esteem. But you also were able to learn over time, like the strengths you mentioned, that you pay attention to detail, going to the Cubs games, paying
Yeah.
attention to who's winning and who's gonna Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, who's gonna be the leader of the home run champ. Like all, but the knowing those types of things, has that also built your language in like job interviews, like talking about strengths, disclosure, and things like that?
Well, the first thing that helps with being on the spectrum
Uh-huh.
is a great attentive. I'm really, really good at so I had to take an IQ test, a memory test, and I was in the 98th percentile of memory. So besides remembering like baseball or sports things, in job interviews or just knowing people, you look something up and you write down a couple things and you remember those things.
Oh, right.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're like whatever, like Jeff Bezos, some millionaire, or like you're a guy on the street. Everyone's a person. They put their pants on the same way. They put their t-shirt on the same way. They're no better than you or I. So I just think like doing personal research and trying to find either a personal connection, a sport, a
Absolutely.
hobby, an interest that they have is I use that as a positive of being on the spectrum during a job interview or talking to
Oh, I
people.
love that. Yeah, because then you can link it into like that connection or that
Mhm.
shared bond.
Exactly.
That's kind of what I did too when I subtly mentioned Barry Bonds, because I remember Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds around the same time with the home runs, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's going to be my way of connecting here with my history of the Chicago Cubs. Um, I've have you ever been to Wrigley Field? I'm just
I've been
curious
there a
now.
lot.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I've
so
So
many
been,
times
I
the
have,
weather.
I have, so one thing about, again, being on the spectrum and obsessive is again, I love baseball. And there's like the MLB ballpark app that you use to scan in
Oh,
tickets.
right.
So this is since the app launched in 2019. So I've seen every single team play. I've been to, now this is since the app launch. I've been to 20 MLB stadiums out of
Oh, that's
30,
amazing.
and I've been to like 26 total, but I've been to 119 MLB games
Oh my
in
gosh.
6 years.
This is it. If there's a Jeopardy category on MLB, we're phoning a friend. We're gonna hit up Kyle for that.
But to answer your question, I have been to Wrigley 10 times.
Okay, yeah. So you're definitely familiar with that.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's a great stadium too. You've got like some of what is it, the apartments, the people in the back, and the out in the
my
outfield.
my dream house that I wanted to be where I was a kid was one of the apartment building across Wrigley Field, because
Yeah.
I thought it would be so cool to like live there and be like, oh, I'm gonna go on the rooftop and I'm gonna watch a baseball game for free, and then
Right.
like whatever, go back to my room and my apartment. Like that was my dream place. I wanted to live as a kid, and I did like research on like, okay, how much is it for rent? How much would I have to save for rent? Looking for a job in Chicago. What is the type of job that could afford me an apartment right next to Wrigley Field, moving up?
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that.
So
And
I have a question.
yeah, I wanted to tie this in real quick because for the people, the individuals listening that are therapists, for part of my social groups that I have, this like discussion is awesome because like these are the exact same things that I do during sessions, which is we'll pull up Google Earth, we'll look at the city, and we'll look at all of the lines because there's no parking around Wrigley Field. You literally have to take a train in.
Yes,
But
yes.
and then this builds conversations and connections, and I get to learn more about baseball. But I want to tie that in because these are the things that I get passionate about too, like learning about additional. I'm a person who likes learning
Yeah, it's
information.
like
Anyway, I wanted to tie that
well, it's
in.
a really good example of how you can use someone's interests and strengths to form friendships as opposed to trying to shut them down, because you probably had people in your life who were just like, let's not talk about baseball,
Yes,
right?
or they would be like, Kyle, like we talked enough about baseball. Let's talk about something else. Like there's other things we can talk about.
Yeah.
Where if I see them, like I'll just talk about baseball, and there's like there's other sports going on, or like how's your day?
Right.
How's your girlfriend doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
So I would love to know because it sounds like the reading your report was so hard for you, and I'm sure planted all these seeds in your head of, well, maybe I'm not ever gonna do X, Y, or Z, like you said. And I would love to know just how you overcame that mentality and then went on to be so successful and living on your own, and now you have a girlfriend, and like maybe you could take what you've learned and kind of share it in a way that would be advice for either other people or even parents
Yeah.
who have
yeah,
kids
yeah,
who would benefit from
yeah,
hearing.
absolutely. So the first thing with that, like besides getting the report, it's also what the peers around you. So at the time, like kids aren't the nicest. So if I was a little different or a little outside, kids might have not been the most encouraging or the most supportive, or saying like you're not going to do anything. And it was really hard, as a kid. I didn't have as many friends, and just trying to figure things out and thinking like, what am I doing wrong? And kind of victimizing, blaming myself for things I really didn't have any control over, but also not getting upset. I was getting upset about things I had no control over. I couldn't control like my autism or learning disability, and I couldn't control how people might have reacted or what they think. But also, it was also like black and white thinking that I thought like a kid, like, oh, they have a lot of friends, they must have like everything must be great. But then taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture, that okay, Kyle, you might not have as many friends in school, but if you look at the big picture, you have an amazing family support group. You have a mom and dad who love you, a sister who accepts you for who you are. You have like you're able to go to so many sporting events and do so many cool things in your life and explore so many things. And that was part of it. And that's something I still struggle with and work on, where like someone who looks like they have more, looks like they have like all these friends, well, they might need more friends because maybe at home their family life is not the greatest,
Right.
or maybe there's like a parent with issue, or you don't know what them, maybe they Maybe they have like, maybe like there's a money issue. Like you don't know.
You just never
You
know.
you
Yeah.
never know, and you can't really assume. So part of it was like, okay, I can't really compare my own journey to someone else's journey. Like I have to live my life on how I want to live it, and I have to be happy with the choices I make. So then, like, I graduated high school, again, like, amazing time. And then moving on to college, I'm still very determined and very motivated, but I wanted to, like, prove people wrong. So, like, I gave up a lot. I studied really hard. I went to school. I, like, took class very seriously, like, perfect attendance, like, showing up and showing that I care, but also using those personal connection to build those relationships with professors. And, and then as I got older, and as people get older, people mature, and they say like, okay, how I treated you might have been wrong at that time, or they say, hey, I was dealing with these issues, or I was really jealous of you because you had an amazing family, or because you got to go to Disney so many times. Then it's just like, when people mature and grow, like they explain. And I used to be upset about it first, but it's one of those now that, like, the past is the past. I can't get worried about something that I can't control, and I just like Elsa, like I have to let it go.
That is right. I think that's a great life lesson that you shared with us. Like, don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to yourself and build from there. And that's how you grow. And don't get caught up in ruminating over what other people might have, because there's a chance when you step back and take perspective that maybe they don't have what you think they have, and we focus on what we can do to grow, right?
Right, and
So
you're only seeing one or two things. There's one or two things that they might have more, but if you want to be someone else, you have to take everything. So you have to take the positive
yeah,
and the negative.
you can't just take the big boat.
You can't, right. You can take the big boat, but you don't know
So you
about,
gotta take
like,
everything else too that comes with that big boat, all the stresses and the
right, all the stress. How much does it cost trying to put it
all,
somewhere?
yeah. Yeah, all, and beyond that, even you just never know. Yeah, it's I think that's true. Building on that,
So it's like in college, I was just like, my goal as a kid, I wanted to work and live in New York. I'm like, I love financial services. I remember I read like an article in like fourth or fifth when I was learning how to read. And I didn't know like you could buy a stock of Disney or Apple or all these companies. I had like no idea. And my parents did for me is I had like a Disney share. I remember being so excited. You see on TV, it goes up 20 cents. And like 20 cents when you're 8 years old is like $1 million. Like,
totally.
oh my gosh, I'm rich.
Just seeing
And
just
it's just
seeing it
one.
going up, like even if it's 1 cent, it's like it went up. It's
It
in the
went
green
up. It
zone.
went up. But it's
Stay
just
in the green zone.
right, like go up, go up.
Yeah.
And so like I thought that was really cool. And so then when I learned like, okay, New York is like the best like financial services, and started learning about mutual funds, hedge fund, private equity, I was like, I want to go where the best of the best is. I want to work where the best of the best is. So that's in New York.
New York's where it's
New
at.
York is where it's at. So in college, I was really determined so I entered in originally with doing marketing and sales, because I was a great salesman. I was really good at talking to people. And that was, again, having a personal connection. So, like, as a kid, when I did Boy Scouts, I sold Christmas trees. I was always like the top seller. I would sell like 25,000
Oh,
a
that's
year,
amazing.
and
Wow.
you get 10% commission. So,
That's
like,
actually that
if
must
you
be
get $2,000, like,
that's huge.
as a
Yeah, as
kid,
a kid,
that's a lot of money.
they're rolling in the dough like Scrooge McDuck or whoever wasn't
Jumping
that
in.
jumping in. It's like
Little
swimming.
coins.
Woo!
So I was like, okay, I want to do marketing sale that I think I could sell to people, do really well. And I remember in school talking to people. I knew people who were really, really good at that. But I saw that going into a sales like role is extremely stressful. You don't know your next commission, and knew a lot of people who were maybe work somewhere for a couple of years and trying to find another job. And you're like, you always have to be on.
Right.
And so my parents recommended for me to take an accounting class. My parents were accountants. They met at an accounting firm in Milwaukee, and they're like, take an accounting class. You would do really, really well in that. I'm like, okay, I took it. Okay, I'll try. So I took an entry-level accounting class, and I really, really liked it. It was like putting a puzzle together. It came very naturally, and there's
Oh,
nothing
that's awesome.
stressful. And it was like, okay, I think of like if you see like the film The Accountant where Ben Affleck like is autistic, it's like okay, it's kind of like a puzzle I can put together, putting in attention to detail
Yeah,
and
attention to
figuring out how things
detail,
balance.
pattern recognition,
Yes,
Mhm.
putting it all together to solve problems and come to the final conclusion of things different than other people and becoming being successful at
right.
that.
So I was just so hyper focused. I'm like I want to do really, really well. So I was really, really focused on doing the best I can in school. And I did really well in school. School went really, really well. Like got a high GPA and then like interviewed with a major accounting firm. And I remember one of my favorite moments is I flew out to New York. I interviewed with the firm. I flew back. And the guy that I interviewed with, I was in the Milwaukee airport. My phone's ringing, my cell phone. I pick it up. I'm like, hello. And they're like, hey, Kyle, just wanted to tell you that when he said that, my phone died. I'm like, oh my, oh my God. It's like, I don't know what's gonna happen here. And
Right.
I'm like in the Milwaukee airport, I plug in my phone, I'm like in the terminal, like, come on, charge. And it gets to 3%. And I call him like, hey, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to hang up on you. Like this didn't mean to happen. It's like, Kyle, it's okay. You got the job.
Oh
And when
yeah,
I
yeah,
got the
yeah.
job, like I started crying because so many people in my life had said, no, you're not going to do anything. And I got a big boy job
Right,
in a big
yeah.
boy city
In
when
the biggest city,
in the
right?
biggest
Yeah,
city.
man.
And when I
Big
graduated, my
place.
parents were like, all right, Kyle, you're an adult. You're on your own. You got to like figure out how to get an apartment. And then
Man.
like, when you buy furniture, you're gonna have to buy furniture with a credit card and trying to find a credit card that has either 0% interest or something with points. And if there's an offer with 0% interest for a year, like a payment plan, how are you gonna get yourself out of debt? Like being an adult, they put me out real fast and they're like, you have to learn how to be an adult because if not, you will never learn how do you manage your own money or just being a responsible, like having a budget, showing up on time. Like you're gonna have to do this. And I
Right.
really appreciated I knew my parents would still help me, but I appreciated kind of the tough love and they're like, okay, now you
Yeah,
have to be
the
an
little
adult.
nudge to
I
get
know
out
it's
there
like
and to
really cool to hear about how your parents like they really protected you for a
Yeah.
long time and kept you under their wings, and then it was like time to go out there and do all the things and be
Do,
independent. And
Do you have that with your students eventually? I don't know if you do help out if there's a separate program for like 18 to 21, but like once they get there, it's like, helping them like if you're going to be on your own or a group home, like how do you budget? How do you take public transportation? How do you be
all
an
of that.
independent
Yeah.
adult?
Yeah, that's always the big push. Like where I work, which is not too far outside of Los Angeles, they're trying to push more with transition programs for 18 to 22 year olds to
Okay.
work on things like that. But I think that's such a big need is getting some job coaching, some
Yeah.
job support, and some support with all of the life things,
yeah,
man, like budgeting, balancing bank accounts. Oh man,
yeah,
understanding taxes. Oh no, not that word.
yeah. Well, I feel like we gotta kind of get to wrap up,
Yeah.
but thank you so much for being here. I think this is really cool to get to hear your story, and I hope it inspires so many people. And you've been
If
through so much in your life.
if I can
You want to add
say
one more
the last thing, and this is a blessing what recently happened. A couple weeks ago, the job that I worked really, really hard to get and that I was at for 10 years,
Mhm.
um, I unfortunately was laid off. But I had 10 great years at this place. But I think part of this of being on the spectrum is sometimes when you're so overstimulated and it was so narrow focused, like I want to do really, really well on this job. and I did well enough. But there's a lot of times there's like a square peg in a round hole where I was good at this, but multiple times I would get feedback, like, Kyle, you might be better in a different environment, or you might try something like, if you're more social, like going into a sales environment. And I was trying to be someone and trying to be like someone that I was not. And
Oh,
I was
gotcha.
getting really negative and comparing and be like, well, this person's really good. They're performing well or succeeding. And one of my friends be like, but Kyle, that person is, yeah, that person's beating you today, but you're comparing a couple things. Like at this job, you have to be like this person. That's what they want, or that's what they require.
Oh,
And they're like, you don't fit that. But Kyle, that's okay. They're like, people have left, people have done other things, moved on, and been extremely successful. So now it's like, I'm kind of excited that the band-aid was ripped off. And now it's like finding, okay, what is the next chapter that I
yeah.
want to do in my life? And there is time.
Mhm.
And I think the big thing for advice for this story is that it's never too late to become who you really want. And life is no race. And that's something I still struggle and tell myself. I'm going to be 34. I'm going to be 34 in a month. And there's part of comparing where there's like people at 34, who are extremely, extremely successful. There are people at 34 who maybe are still trying to figure out what they want to do in their life. But it again comes to my parents and my mom saying, like, this is your life. Whatever you do that makes you happy, finding a job that makes you happy, doing the things that make you happy, that is
Yeah.
what matters. And I can say that I have done a lot of things in my life that I want to and continue to do that makes me happy. And that's what I like. And that brings my authentic, true self.
That's key.
And that's all that really matters.
I
Yeah,
love that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Great note to end on.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's so the next chapter and moving forward is finding that to continue building from the things that you've learned along the way. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anything else you wanted to add, Jess?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Kyle, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And we will wrap it up and
More to come on Kyle's story.
That's
We'll see
right.
what's
Thanks,
next
Kyle.
Thank
for
you. Thank you.
hey man.
Thanks, man.
Great.
Thank you.
Cool.